I suck at predictions. Hi guys, welcome back to Lexalexus. As you can hear from the sub intro I've just done there, my prediction streak is not going so well at the moment. I think this is the longest streak I've had with not getting an entirely correct prediction. Don't know if that's me losing my touch. Some would argue I've already lost my touch, but I think part of the reason is just ringing true to the fact that this season in the Championship has been so unpredictable. I think the current top half of the Championship, I don't think anyone would have predicted that was going to be our top half or even our top 6 or top 10 by this point of the season. It is absolutely insane the amount of good surprises we're having in the Championship, and I'm going to assume we're going to continue those good surprises as we're now immediately predicting week 12, where I've barely recovered and digested what has happened in terms of the midweek games, which I will give my brief reaction to when I predict these next coming games. The subscriber getting the shout out today, it's Felix Ekman. A couple of you have subscribed from my last video, so thank you for giving that video a lot of support. There will be more viewers that I'll be reading names out in my next couple of videos, and if you do subscribe to the channel, it is likely that your name will be read out in the next coming videos. If you can like the video, that really does help. If we can go for 50 likes, that will be absolutely amazing. Please also share the channel too, that really helps as well. And a new feature I'm just discovering is the hype feature. It typically appears when you like the video. If you can do that as well, that'd be absolutely amazing. All of those things are free to do and it really doesn't cost anything, so all of that really helps. But without any further ado, let's start predicting week 12 for the Championship. Begin our video predicting Preston and Sheffield United. Of course, it is Sheffield United making a return to their former manager Paul Heckingbottom, where he would have had some Premier League experience with this Sheffield United recently. So Preston, going into this game, they lost in midweek against Birmingham, and a bit of a bizarre time for Preston because we've seen them being relatively consistent in the Championship so far this season, but it is back-to-back defeats for Preston now, and as a result, they're now falling lower down in the table. I think they're 11th place now, so they're falling dangerously to that mid-table point of view, and they really need to get a response here. But Sheffield United, I said it in my videos that I think we are now going to start seeing them build some momentum. They got a good win against Blackburn. The 3-1 scoreline certainly favoured Sheffield United in that game, but regardless, it was a brilliant result for them. And for the fact that's now back-to-back wins, it does mean that they're now no longer, as of this video, officially in the bottom 3, and all it took was just back-to-back wins. That's all it took, and they can easily look at this game thinking, right, well, Preston are not doing so well with their form at the moment, but they can look at this as a huge opportunity to try and climb up even more. But we've seen some brilliant results in Deepdale already this season. They've already picked up wins, Preston, at Deepdale against Ipswich and against Leicester. You know, maybe that's not so much of a surprise considering where both those teams are in the table, but Deepdale is proving to be a very tough place for teams to go to, and I think Sheffield United will find that out the hard way. Do I think Preston could win it? I think they can, but am I going to predict it? I'm going to play a little bit safe and I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. But I was really tempted to give Preston the win there since the results we have already seen in detail have been quite extraordinary. But I am just going to level it out with Sheffield United improving their form and going to go for a 1-1 draw. Next up, we are predicting top of the table Coventry against Watford. Now, Coventry just don't look like that they're going to be stopped as this moment of time. I mean, they're already on 25 points. They have won 5 games in a row now, and the goal they conceded right in stoppage time against Portsmouth was actually the first goal they conceded, I think, in 4 matches. So not only are Coventry scoring loads, they're not conceding many goals either. So they've really got the perfect combination at this moment. They're facing a Watford side where it was their very first win under Javi Gracia, but it was at Vicarage Road against a West Brom side who have been a little bit inconsistent on the road. This is going to be a much tougher test for Watford here, and in recent history, Coventry have been getting the slight better of Watford. They beat them relatively comfortably last season. For a prediction here, I think I'm going to still go for a Coventry win, but I do think Watford are quite exciting. They are quite an interesting team, and I think they'll make it relatively close. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Coventry, but Watford could easily throw a spanner in the works. They have got some individual quality players that could pop up. Next up, we've got Ipswich and West Brom. It is two sides who lost in midweek who'll be wanting to get a response. Ipswich at this moment, it was a poor defeat. It's the first time they've had back-to-back defeats in the Championship this season, so they'll be doing okay not to, string too many losses together, but they are currently in 13th place in the table. That is certainly nowhere near where Ipswich would want to be, considering the money they spent on players in the summer transfer window. And I think Ipswich, we're going to see it with Southampton and to a smaller extent Leicester. What we have seen is that when you invest heavily in a squad, it is very likely there's going to be lots of disruption and it's going to cause more problems than it's going to fix them. And the best sides in the Championship, I actually think, are the sides with, the least changes and, the squads that are most settled in a way. I think Charlton is probably the one exception to that, with teams in the top 6 in that way. But going into this game here, there is one side I'm certainly favouring, and it's the away side. Not even just down to the fact that I'm very pessimistic of Ipswich's chances based on their recent performances, but West Brom have had the better of Ipswich in their last 6 competitive head-to-head meetings. So West Brom do have a really good record, and I think as a prediction, reluctantly, I think I'm going to go for a 2-1 away victory to West Brom. A draw wouldn't be a massive shock to me, but there was so much pessimism, and the manner of how Charlton just got through goal by goal when players in the back line just not reacting. I know Kieran McKenna made loads of changes in that game pretty foolishly, I think, almost underestimating what Charlton were going to be. I think he will go strong against West Brom, but West Brom could probably sense an opportunity to go back to winning ways, and they'll be wanting to get a much better reaction losing in the way that they did against Watford too. Yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 away victory to West Brom. Next up, we've got Portsmouth versus Stoke. Portsmouth going into this game narrowly losing in the end against Coventry, and Stoke going into this game also losing their midweek game. They lost a little bit more heavily against Millwall. It's interesting this. So I distinctly remember both of their games last season, and they couldn't be any more different than what they tried. Stoke absolutely demolished Portsmouth, didn't they, at the Bet365, but then I believe at Fratton Park it was Portsmouth that managed to get the better out of Stoke in the second time around and got revenge. Now that it is in Fratton Park, and I think Portsmouth have been picking up some good results, and I think at home against Coventry they didn't disgrace themselves. They certainly made it a little bit competitive. Stoke, based on their form, they've been a bit up and down, and I think especially away from home they've certainly not been as strong as they have been. I like to think their last away game, from what I remember, their last away win, I think, was against Southampton. So it has been a little bit of time since Stoke managed to get 3 points on the road, and I'm seeing that as a bit of a weakness at this moment. As a prediction, I'm going to go here for a Portsmouth 1-0 home win. I just think Portsmouth at home are very, very dangerous, and I think Stoke will learn that the hard way. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments. Now to a very big game in the bottom of the table. We've got Blackburn versus Southampton. How many of you would have predicted that Blackburn and Southampton were going to be within the bottom 6 going into this point of the season? I think some may have said Blackburn, but certainly not Southampton. And both will be wanting to get a much better response in this game than their last game. So Blackburn were held to defeat against Sheffield United. And yeah, that one was a tough one for them. They managed to get the game level, but then Sheffield United's quality in the end just really rang true, especially in the second half. And it has given the Sheffield United side more confidence, and as a result, they have leapfrogged Blackburn as well in the table. But Southampton themselves will want to get a response, and in fact, it's another team that lost 3-1 in midweek, this time in the hands of Bristol City. Some of the defending was very embarrassing and shambolic for Southampton's point of view, and they've got lots to work on at this moment of time. But I'm really unconvinced about what this game's going to be. I could see Blackburn being a threat, but then we've seen what the individual players can do for Southampton when they're on it. So prediction-wise, a draw wouldn't massively surprise me either. I see goals. I see both defenses not being particularly strong at this moment. I'm going to go for a 3-2er, and I think I'm going to back Southampton for the 3-2. It really could go either way, to be fair. I think this is actually going to be a very interesting competitive game, but Blackburn are under more pressure with the fact that they're currently in the bottom three, and they really ought to try and get a result so the gap between them and safety doesn't expand. And Southampton's point, I mean, they're already below par enough as it is. They'll look at this game as an opportunity to potentially get their season underway, but even if they do, consistency is a massive factor in the championship, and we've just not seen enough evidence of that at the moment. So I'm going to go for a Blackburn defeat with Southampton narrowly edging them. Next up, we've got Bristol City versus Birmingham. Two sides with wins in midweek. Bristol City beating Southampton by 3-1. Scott Twine getting 2 goals. He's having an unbelievable season at this moment of time with Bristol City. Birmingham managed to put their defeat against Hull behind them, and they responded by beating Preston at Deepdale by 1-0. Not many sides have beaten Preston at Deepdale this season, so Birmingham could take a bit of pride from that. But having said that, Birmingham are still in a mid-table position. That is definitely below the standards that they would have had based on the new signings coming in. And this is another example. I mean, we've seen parachute teams, but then we're also seeing teams with huge investments. If you change so much of that squad, it's not going to be consistent. And Wrexham are having that sort of problem as well of not having that consistency. And I think part of that project is hoping that they do gain that consistency at some point of the season and they become very ruthless. But the longer it drags on, the more unlikely it is that they'll be able to achieve the expectations they set themselves. So maybe cut a bit of a lesson, you know, sometimes trusting your squad, keeping them settled and keeping the competition for places up for grabs might actually do the trick. This game here, I think, will be interesting. I think with Bristol City being at home, I am a bit more excited about their chances here. I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to Bristol City. I think they could go for more goals. We've seen how effective they were against Southampton. I think they'll go for a very similar vein here in this game. Birmingham, I think, could offer some things, but I think Bristol City overall are the team I trust a little bit more going into this game. Next up, we've got Derby versus Queen's Park Rangers. Another two teams with 2 wins on the board for midweek. So Derby, what a huge win they had against Norwich. They have been struggling for goals and creating chances, but they pulled off an incredible goal. That was the difference between them and Norwich in that game. And that has meant that Derby have now increased their space between them and the bottom 3 and have leapfrogged Norwich entirely and actually have put them in the bottom 3. Queen's Park Rangers, they managed to beat Swansea in the end by 1-0. It wasn't a massively inspiring game, to be honest, but Queen's Park Rangers got the job done. They won in the end. They, sustained the pressure and they managed to hold on for the 3 points. Could we see a similar approach here in this game? I think it's more likely that Queen's Park Rangers will hold on to the ball and Derby will try and break them. So I do think this makes things very interesting here. As a prediction, I'm actually edging this to a draw, I think Derby are decent value for money at home in the moment. And I think Queen's Park Rangers, their form is, I thought it was actually going to turn for the worse. They've managed to rectify that with a good win against Swansea. I'll compromise and I'll say both teams will cancel each other out with a 1-1 draw here. Next up, we are going to be predicting Hull and Charlton, another 2 teams with 2 impressive midweek wins. Hull beat Leicester. I mean, I predicted a draw in that game. I thought Leicester might find it tricky. I didn't think Leicester would lose. So that's only the second time this season that Leicester have lost a game, and it's to the hands of Hull, who have won 3 games in a row. They're smashing it at the moment, Hull City, and long may that continue. I think a lot of us have underestimated what Hull are going to do this season, and their recent form is certainly suggesting that at this moment of time. But then if there was any team we were certainly underestimating, it's Charlton. They're currently in the top 6, an emphatic 3-0 win over Ipswich as well. Ultimately, they got the game plan spot on and they executed it to 100% perfection. And it certainly in that way flattered Charlton. But ultimately, if you stick to a plan and it works, then why not abuse that power? And they exactly did that. It has now put them in the top 6, which is ideally where Ipswich want to be, to be fair. So the fact that they did get those clinical goals, it made Ipswich look like the average team not getting anything from that game. But here, in this game between Hull and Charlton, this is close. Hull are back at home, so I do back them to not lose in this game. I think they've done really well at home so far. But Charlton have done well to nick the odd goal and to hold the game out for a draw. And actually, I think that's what we'll get here. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that game. Can't really decide between the two, but both have impressed me as of late. Next up, we've got Middlesbrough and Wrexham. This is a huge game. So again, it's 2 sides with 2 wins. Middlesbrough are trying to keep up the pace with Coventry at this moment, but they're doing a decent job at it because they're still only 1 point behind Coventry. Now, it was a pretty routine win against Sheffield Wednesday. They could have scored more, but they missed loads of chances, actually, Middlesbrough. So, yeah, certainly it sounds a little bit more close than what it was. That scoreline. Wrexham, they also won by 1-0, but this time against Oxford. Now, this impressed me because they got the early goal, and I thought, okay, this is prone to Wrexham holding the lead and throwing it away again. But not only did they win, they kept the clean sheet, they went down to 10 men, but they still were rallying forward to try and ensure that the game was seen out. Unbelievably, they've done that. I didn't back Wrexham to get a home clean sheet. It's their first home win of the season. And away from home, we've known already that Wrexham are quite good on the road most of the time. Their last away game against Stoke wasn't the best. They didn't even score a goal in that game. I think they could get a goal in this game against Middlesbrough, but Middlesbrough have been so impressive. I saw them, a little bit against Ipswich, and actually what we have seen is that they are a really attacking side, and they know exactly what they need to do to get the best out of them. Morgan Whittaker, by the way, 2 goals in 2 games. Brilliant comeback in his form. As a prediction here, I think it's going to be Middlesbrough that edge this. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Middlesbrough, and that will surely still keep up the pace between them and Coventry. And safe to say, I just cannot wait until Middlesbrough play Coventry. It's going to be an absolutely unbelievable atmosphere, I would say. Let me know what you think of the predictions in the comments. Next up, we've got Millwall. They face Leicester. Millwall are unbelievably in the top 3 in the championship. They've cracked 20 points. It was an impressive win against Stoke. They really actually let their quality outshine in that game. I was very, very impressed with the scoreline that they managed to accrue from that. And they're facing a Leicester side, of course, which I already mentioned had already lost against Hull City. So could we see Leicester lose back-to-back games? I honestly do see it as possible. And Millwall, we've said it already, we've criticised their home form at the start of the season, but they've now seemed to have turned a corner. And we've already praised them for how consistent they've been on the road. If they can now make home and away form as consistent as each other, Millwall could be on an absolutely unbelievably historic season. Now, as a prediction here, I don't think it's going to be easy for Millwall, though. I think they might get something here, but I'm really torn between a draw and a Millwall win, You know what? I'm going to be brave. Let's say Millwall win this. 2-1 Millwall. So, yeah, sounds crazy, but you've got to remember where these teams are on the table. Millwall are in the top 3 currently. Leicester, they're barely within the top 10. So, at this moment, a scoreline as bonkers as it sounds, I actually don't think it's too crazy. So yeah, let's go for 2-1 Millwall. Let's have a little bit of fun and spice things up with the year one parachute payment teams. Next up, we've got Sheffield Wednesday versus Oxford. Now, this is a huge game, I think, for both clubs. Sheffield Wednesday are in a position where if they don't start picking up points soon, they will be cut adrift, and maybe that's what they expect. It was an impressive, powerful moment for them to boycott attending the game against Middlesbrough. Obviously, it didn't really have a positive impact on the players, but the message is that they want Chansiri to leave and ultimately not putting money in his pocket. And that might do it, but I think if it's only that one game, it's not really going to send a clear enough message, unfortunately. It won't resonate. And Oxford's point of view, they would want a response. They lost to Wrexham, and that was previously after doing a brilliant couple of games. And I mean, getting that result against Derby in the game before that, unbelievably clutch for them to do that. So Oxford need to look at this game as a huge opportunity. If they do get a win, Oxford, I think they will actually be in a position which I expect them to be, but maybe a little bit above that for the fact that they have accrued quite a decent amount of points to get them away from danger. As a prediction, I see this being quite low scoring, to be fair. 0-0 wouldn't be a massive shock, but I'm going to go for a 1-0 away victory to Oxford. Oxford have already picked up at least one away win, so I think they'll do the same here. Let me know what you think in the comments. And finally, another really huge game with considerations of the bottom part of the table is Swansea versus Norwich. What has happened with Swansea? They've had an unbelievable start to the season. They obviously, still got the Carabao Cup to think about, which will be, I think, returning next week, actually. So that'll be something that could get in the way of Swansea's already pretty busy schedule. But since then, Swansea's form has fallen off a cliff. They've only won once in their last 5 games, and as a result of that, they're in the bottom 10 teams in the championship now. But Norwich have gone and hit new loads. They are the only team who have lost 4 games in a row at this point of the season. It's not looking great. It really isn't. And that game against Derby, the fact they didn't even get a goal just shocks me how devoid of ideas and confidence they are as a whole. So I'm a bit worried in this game, but I'm quite worried about the actual whole game, to be fair. Swansea aren't at their firing best. Yes, they've got injuries, but every team's going to have injuries at some point. Norwich are just low in confidence, so I have no idea what I'm going to predict. I'm going to go for a draw. 0-0's tempting, but I can't. Let's go for a 1-1 draw. Both teams to score, and ultimately a very unhelpful result for both of these sides. So there you have it, guys. These are my Week 12 score predictions for the Championship. You guys can also be involved in terms of predicting, and please let me know of your score predictions in the comments down below. And if you do leave your comments, with your predictions on it, there is a chance that you will score some points on the Lexalexus Football Prediction League. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, share, and hype. All of those things really, really do help the growth of this channel, and they are all free to do. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you're so new to this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.